Hello and welcome to the Attention Mechanism. My name is Justin Robert Young, joined as always by the one and only Andrew Main. How you doing, buddy?
I'm doing
a lot
fantastic.
Going on in the world of AI, as there oft is. We have a controversy around watermarking for Anthropic, a looming new model for OpenAI with rumors that we might get it sooner rather than later. And I want to actually talk about something we didn't go over in our pre-show meeting, and that is Sam Altman's comments about recording everything and having it be a personal assistant, which went viral, but I think is misunderstood. And I really just want to have a conversation about it. Let's talk about watermarking first, though. Anthropic out with new talking points after there was controversy saying that watermarking for text is coming to Claude. Some of the talking points made more controversy, as oft happens in this industry, and then it eventually coaxed a rare appearance of one Dario Amadei on to the X platform, a long read that went not only into some of the watermarking stuff, but also other complaints about Anthropic, including the thought that it was eventually going to be the last private company ever when the models become powerful enough. But
she didn't actually deny that as a thing they wanted to do, by the way.
Yeah.
You could say, it's a crazy, absurd idea that one company, come on. It's
like, did you say it?
Uh-huh.
Yeah. But let's start with the watermarking. What are your thoughts on it broadly and specifically in Anthropic's application of it?
Well, first they put out a post said, hey, how watermarking works. I didn't actually explain it. And then they had to kind of explain how it works. I've hated watermarking since I first seen it, ever exposed to it. I was at a place where they brought in an expert on this. And they showed us a watermarking system they worked on, and I broke it, showed that it was not because there was a fundamental difference in the way a mathematician looks at words and somebody who writes looks at words. And it comes down to this. I was given access, broke it, showed that it could be broken, and then I was no longer given access to anymore by the team. Maybe they solved it. I don't know. I just know that they were very proud of what they did. And then I was behind the scenes, cheered on by other people to say, hey, this is a problem. So anyhow, here is the way that it works in theory. Now, in theory, you can explain it. Sounds really good. Okay. Every time you generate text, okay, the model starts outputting text. Okay. And you could say, okay, Justin is a remarkable podcaster. Justin's an outstanding podcaster. That word, remarkable and outstanding, to a model could be interchangeable. I could say 50-50 chance of using each one of those, right? So what you can do is you can say, okay, we're going to have a pool. There's a couple of different schemes. I'm going to explain one of the schemes there, but they all come down to is saying this token or not that token, because those tokens are kind of the same thing. And it will have a preference that would in theory be invisible. Here is the problem.
Hold on, just before
if
we
I
go there,
want a model
the
to talk
idea
like Claude,
is then that if you have like a guide for how it was picking these tokens, that you could then lay that over top of something that was generated, and because it weighted these certain words the way that they were weighted, that you could determine whether or not it was written by the model. Is that it?
Yeah, you could say I'm going to put these words into the green pile and these kinds of words into the red pile, and I could say, my key is going to go green, red, green. Like the way image watermarking works is they'll use pixels and put like randomly. They might use a yellow and blue pixel next to each other instead of green. Like it'll do this, but for text it's harder. Images, you have millions of pixels that you can put watermarks into image. You'll never notice it. Like it just really is hard to notice it. Text is harder because you look at 150 words of text. That's only, you got to change a few words in that 150 words. Now to a model, the word outstanding and remarkable might be pretty interchangeable. And it could say, if I said Justin's remarkable, Justin's outstanding, looks good, reads the same, whatever. So if I want the model to write text that sounds like Claude, and it might be fine. I'll describe it. We'll call it Claudese. And Claudese, that's fine. You can use one word or the other. It's fine. Okay. the problem gets into this. And as we know, when you read these models, you can tell they have a style, they have a preference. And I think that we went to this point of pretending that all of a sudden these models are really good and you can't tell their style to now we're going to make the style even more fine-tuned and preferences there. We're not there yet. So if I say rewrite my copy, if I dictate to it and I say, write this, but retain my own voice, it's still going to try to watermark it. And what that's going to mean is I might prefer words like remarkable over outstanding. I might prefer words like, slate gray over overcast. I might have a preference because writers like me, I have a preference as a writer. I could tell you, I will go through manuscripts, and I had this earlier on where it wasn't easy to track by words. I could tell you where an editor went in and changed a very simple verb or the word at times because there's a flow. I'm using this word, so I use this phrase, I go from this language, I do this, then all of a sudden I get to remarkable. Like, no, I wouldn't use remarkable because 5 lines up, I said magic marker, and a model. These models currently don't think about that. They are literally not thinking about that, how word choice comes into play. So they're bad at it. That's one of the ways I was able to spot this sort of stuff is because I knew that it's attention for why I was choosing one word over the else. It's literally, they're not good. They're better at writing, but they're not good enough to pick up style. Anybody who tries to write with one of these models knows it can't pick up their style. Yet here, Anthropic saying, oh, it'll be invisible. I'm like, I'm sorry. Yeah. I can still spot Claude writing. Now you're going to add this extra restraint, which is going to make it even more narrow and choose fewer of the words I would use. So I think this is bullshit. I think it's just the idea that it's imperceptible. What you can say is to say, hey, if you're just asking the model to write as the model write, it'll be really hard to know because you're not going to know why the word choices are there. But if you're trying to tell it to write in your voice or a style or edit your document, it will make choices that you may not make because you may have differences. And one examples I bring up is, the difference. What's the difference between soda, pop, and Coke? Nothing, depending upon where you are. Those words, though, in different regions mean different things. If you're in the South and you want a drink, you just ask for a Coke, even if you mean a Pepsi, even whatever. If you're in the Northwest, maybe you don't say soda, you say pop. I want a pop. You want a pop. Models don't, unless you tell the model explicitly, hey, I'm an Oregonian, use my language, it won't know that, and you will see things pop up. So this is the problem I have right now with models being very bad. It's why I love to write, and I'm glad I don't have to use these models to write for me. But if I did, I would be frustrated with them because they just tend to go towards this. They gravitate. I understand a model's idea of writing is, it used to be took the internet, all the internet, and tried to average on what the average way the internet wrote something. Then what OpenAI and Anthropic started is I said, no, let's give it better examples of writing. But that's where you get this really clippy sort of style writing, this, but that, this matters, this thing, which was like a style Axios used. Like people like, where'd this come from? Like, I don't know, probably trained on
And it's
Axios
something
data.
A lot of people miss.
So anyhow, yes, it matters. So you just see these phrases, and we all pick these things that we see these phrases there. Now that's going to make the models even more slop. It's going to be even more slop. And I've told, people, I get people push back like, oh, it's imperceptible. Like AI detectors shouldn't work, but they actually work pretty well because there's so many patterns with AI text that it's pretty easy to emulate it. It's very easy to defeat it, which is why I hate AI detectors because it's trivial to defeat them. But I can already throw something into my AI detector and it says, yeah, this is Claude. So I'm telling you that if you can't defeat an AI detector that doesn't even know your algorithm, how the hell is your watermark going to be invisible? It's going to be hard. It's going to be a thing where, and it might be like you have to have longer passages of text. So I have an issue from a technical point of view, and I get into the moral issues in a second, but
why is this a thing? There's already so much text that is on the internet that's machine generated or just ripped off or copied, like copy pasted over and over and over again. The idea of identifying LLM outputted text in general to me seems to be less of a 5-alarm fire than, say, videos or images, where I do think having a good watermark to be a kill switch on saying, well, this is definitely AI generated is probably a little bit more warranted because those tend to be more inflammatory mediums. And also it's like people yell fire in a crowded theater, metaphorically, all the time on the internet. It doesn't take an LLM to do that.
Number one, blame the EU. The EU has passed mandates that say you have to put this into text, regardless of the fact that it doesn't work. And this is the argument I've had before about this is let's assume that it worked. And I'm not saying it can't work, that your models can't get sophisticated enough to even take my words and use them in a way that I won't notice that. It'd have to take a lot of tokens to it. I do, but I'm getting this argument, somebody online is like, oh, so you're saying it can't work? I'm like, no, I'm saying it can. It just can't right now, given where models are. And arguments made from people who don't think models write very well are now telling me that watermarking is invisible. I'm like, you can't have both. But let's assume that it did work, okay? The goal of the EU is the idea is like, you look, we're filled with slop. LinkedIn, everywhere slop, Twitter, all sorts of slop. Slop text is all around us, okay? 100% all around us. I'm also of the opinion, I know it's slop because I read it and it feels like slop. And it's like, I don't need an AI detector. What matters is it useful to me or not? And a lot of it isn't. It's low effort, and I can spot that in the first paragraph. AI detectors have an inherent flaw in that it's very easy, trivial to erase the watermark in a way by just substitutions, feeding it through another model, using a model that wasn't watermarked. So all that means is we're just going to say, well, this was written by Claude. I don't know what this other stuff is, and you have no certainty. And I would say if you're trying to prevent bad actors, foreign actors who are trying to influence you, and that's one of the arguments I heard was, oh, what if the Chinese want to start flooding us with all sorts of stuff?
What if?
I'm like, cool, bro. They're not going to be using Claude or Chat. Yeah, what if? But they're not going to be using Claude or ChatGPT to use it. They're going to be using the homegrown models to do it, which you can't detect it. All you're going to do now is people are going to be like, you know what? I thought this was a Chinese influence thing, but I used the AI detector, said it wasn't. Must be real. It's literally making it worse. It's literally making that situation worse. So that's my moral argument. Number one is it will not protect us from the abuses of slop because you can hide it. It's not, people get in this Hogwarts mentality of like, well, the Ministry of Magic was made it so we can detect all text now. No, you can only detect good actors' text. You can't detect bad actors' text. That's the whole purpose of it. The other argument I'll make against this is we forget how much of online discourse, Twitter, and a lot of other things are dictated by people who are very good writers, are very good at using text, okay? And other mediums like YouTube and Instagram, if you're dyslexic, that's a great medium for you, okay? But if you're trying to be taken seriously in the world of text or whatever, it's a challenge for you. Sitting down to write a tweet or something like this takes work. It takes effort because literally your brain doesn't process words the same way. Tools like Claude and ChatGPT have been a lifesend to people who are dyslexic and have different abilities like this, okay? And I know people who use them now to write who could not communicate before. Now the thing is, they all get the scarlet letter. Doesn't matter if every word was their own, because guess what? Using an AI to help you write is not the same as plagiarizing something. In fact, it's easier to get away plagiarizing something than it is with, one of these things. So I'm like, okay, so anybody who's dyslexic, anybody who English is a second language uncomfortable with this, who uses a model to fix their words or languages, because they said they will watermark that, now you're going to go, well, that's slop. And it's like, no, you don't know that. What have we gained? What have we gained? We're not protected from slop. We're not in a world where we get better writing. We're not in a world where we're assisting people who need these tools the most.
I'm puzzled by it. I don't really see the upside at all in like
But you and I have been talking about this for 5 years. And I've been telling you about this for 5 years, and we've gone through, and I've been in AI places, we'll say, and I've brought up the other arguments, and I've had people go, researchers working on the problem go, oh, I never thought about that part of it, that the people are dyslexic. Like, oh yeah, that's an issue. And some places stopped trying to push it out there because they realized that could be an issue. But government pressure is real. Anthropic is, real. But also I think that Anthropic, just one of the things too is I know a person who's a prominent founder of a lab who's like, listen, we got to protect against, all this AI generated content. And I'm like, all you're going to do is make yourself more vulnerable to Chinese and Russian disinfo, which isn't watermarked. Like all you're going to do is you can say, I can select for this, but not for that. Like it's not this magical world. That's where I first realized how magical people thinking was, the idea that if we just do this, then it'll stop it. And if you look at the outputs from all these other models, it's huge.
I mean, at a certain point, you just got to understand that, on the internet, no one knows you're a dog. Like that, we have no idea where any of the stuff is coming from on the internet. Like the fact that a lot of it's AI generated is, I think, just going to be a concern of antiquity pretty soon. The only question, as always, is the information I'm reading benefiting my life or is it not benefiting my life? And I do think that we are in an interesting point of view where the capabilities have outstripped the abilities of the platforms to want to do anything but maximize engagement because they are advertising focused. And so you are ingesting a lot of slop, but some of the slop is good. Some of the slop is bad. Some of the slop is redundant. Some of the slop is what it is. The thing that we are trying theoretically to optimize for is to stop the mass disinformation campaigns. But if we think that that's going to be solved by Claude watermarking, I got a bridge in Shanghai to sell you. Like this is happening now. This is happening at scale now. Chinese disinformation, Russian disinformation is happening right now at scale. Iranian disinformation is happening right now at scale. This is not a thing that needed LLMs to happen. Will LLMs make it supercharged? Sure. But like they're going to get past whatever cultural tests we have because they've been getting past whatever cultural tests we've had over the last 15 years.
Yeah. And I feel like it is this idea of I don't like a thing. Okay, well, we'll do this. Like, well, that won't stop the thing. It may make it worse. Yeah, but at least I did something. Like you literally said you want to make it worse, and it's hard. And I get it. And like I am a, writing, using these tools to write text in fiction and the world I'm in is a super, super big topic there. And I'm like, I tell writers, don't do it. Why do it? I mean, I understand why you want to be a writer and you want to use tools, unless people are like, I just want to produce a bunch of books, whatever. I'm like, okay, I think that in the long run, it's not going to help you out. You're going to create stuff that's not going to be as good, whatever. But I don't know. On one hand, I am a person vehemently against watermarking, but I'm also vehemently against people who are professional writers for actually using this to do the writing. So, I mean, this thing, like, I think more about just, people I know who, I have friends that English is their second language. They struggle with grammar, struggle these things, and these tools, ChatGPT is a godsend to them to be able to like just change things, improve the quality of writing. But now all we're saying is that great, when I get an application and it's not to be a pro writer, it's just literally for a job so they might be skilled at, I'm like, oh, they used AI. I cut them out. And it's like, sorry, Richard Branson.
Yeah,
you can't run business.
One of the things when I was doing research in interviews for OpenAI for their first ChatGPT back to school blog post that they were doing. One of the people that I interviewed, and I don't know if they made the blog post, but it was a college in Gaza that was applying for grants, and they used it because it made their English crisper. So they were able to apply there. Now, if you had a scenario, which this is a little bit of a straw man argument, but still, I don't think it's far off. If the grant application mandated was we are going to scan for AI because there are too many AI generated grants that are coming in, then that grant would get flagged. And
1,000%.
I just think we just need to solve these problems elsewhere, and there are things that can be solved on the system level. I think watermarking for video, watermarking for text, or for pictures makes a lot of sense to me on a system level. But this I don't get. I'm really puzzled by it.
Yeah, and your point, like it's a strong point that I want to kind of make, is it does disadvantage the poor or lesser resourced. And like you said, there is here's a school that cannot afford a full-time grant writer, cannot afford it like a Western school can, and needs to compete for grants. Western school can afford to do this. The needs are the same. The needs are the same, or even more so, and we see this. And that's one of the things that our former high school had one of the most advanced labs for doing like oceanographic research you would find outside of a university, because the principal hired an amazing grant writer who just wrote nonstop grants for the school and brought in so much funding because they understood the value of that and they figured out to budget for it. Other schools don't get that game. And if they're having, the librarian write a bunch of grants for stuff and she's got to use Claude to help her write this stuff, they're saying, F you, sorry. Because that is going to be a thing, is that, we're going to get into this form of discrimination of saying, well, you're using AI to do it. We don't know you're real or whatever. And it's like, it's just an easy way to say no. So, I think Anthropic has a right to do it. I don't think it's in good service of people to do it. And I hope OpenAI doesn't do it, but there's so much pressure to do this.
This is on the EU side, because that was Anthropic's point, was that their this was an EU regulation and all the other major labs were going to do it. In fact, that was Anthropic's first point in their social media post about it was, don't blame us, everybody's about to do it.
Yeah. And I get it. In defense of them, when half the Western world is literally saying, we're going to pass this law to say you have to do it, what do you do? When you're a company, when you're saying, well, I say when democracy is spoken, but it really wasn't a democracy there that decided this, but
democracy, quote unquote. Yeah.
OpenAI's talked about it before. They've addressed it, and put out an example of this, whatever, but didn't, to my knowledge, never implemented that anyway. I will just say that I've always wondered sometimes, like, has this already been in place? Because I look at how much I have to fight with AI models for word choice and stuff, and I go like, man, like, I don't know.
Do we want to talk about the Dario long post? Did you read the Dario long post?
I had, ChatGPT summarize it for me. Skimmed it, Takes a lot of words to say a few things.
A pirate. Yeah, he was responding to a clip that went viral from the All In podcast that said Anthropic believes that they are going to be the last private company. I'll say, I don't know if I heard that, and there's only so many people that I talk to from around the world of AI, but I've heard similar things. I mean, when you get the Anthropic people talking about the far future, like there's a lot of stuff. Yeah.
OpenAI too. Yeah, OpenAI too. The cafeteria discussion, things like this, is the idea is if you create the super advanced AI and you could figure out the economy, that's a scenario. I always thought it's unlikely and ridiculous, but I'm like,
it's also indicative of the idea, which I think is degrading, but is still around, of like, there will be one winner. One team will discover AGI, and then that will replicate to the point that no other team will be able to compete, and that'll be that.
The problem is in that scenario is that you have to simplify the world to such a point that can become a possibility, because you're like, aha, in this scenario, we've amassed everything. Like, cool. Who owns the land where your data center is? Who owns the lease to the pipeline providing the power? Did you get that? Because if you didn't, guess what? You don't own it. There was a famous, was a Donald Trump quote, I think it was, if you borrow $100,000 from the bank owes
$100 million.
If you borrow, you owe like $100 million from the bank, you own the bank. Yeah. And there's just these things like, you think you own it until you find out you don't own it, So I always thought that was sort of this funny scenario of like, there's still going to be a thing called a democracy and the military and these other things that, like literally we had in California, a politician decided overnight that we're going to tax imaginary income.
Yeah, that was another big conversation on Twitter between Ro Khanna, Mark Cuban, and a host of others that we can talk about at a later date.
Yeah. Ro Khanna, who literally files his tax forms in paper to make them hard to search. Otherwise, you find out that his kids own golf courses and stuff. Like, it's insane. That's just...
Interesting politician, Ro Khanna, I will say, dipping into my PX3 mode. Bit of a chameleon. He, it was not long ago that his bones were made as being the Democrat that was friendly to Silicon Valley, and he has found a lane in a more progressive camp that has not earned him many friends in his home district. I'll be very curious whether or not people try to eventually unseat him, or if he runs for president and he unseats himself. But based on his tax returns, he's not going to have to worry about money, so that's good for him. He can do whatever he wants.
Yeah. Always good for the super wealthy, protecting us from the mega wealthy.
The Dario post doesn't really, you mentioned before, doesn't really mention the idea that they think that they're going to be the last private company. Instead, kind of goes into a longer discussion about regulation versus anti-competitive regulation or regulatory capture, and when are things good and when are things bad. And I don't know who was being such a doomer about AI, we need to talk more positively about AI, which is a very hot dog. We're all looking for the guy who did this kind of moment, but a very interesting figure, Dario, because the reaction to that to me was telling. There was somebody who immediately from Anthropic that was like, this is the kind of stuff that happens in the Anthropic Slack all the time. Now everybody can see how awesome it is. And I'm like, oh boy, if I had to hear the and get those, I don't know. But maybe I'm not built for it. I don't have that dog in me.
It's at OpenAI, we had, Ilya would go give very motivating speeches about AGI and, because he's, Ilya's brilliant and Dario's brilliant. They're both brilliant guys. I would say that, the differences at OpenAI, the first book we were recommended to read was Gulag Archipelago, which is all about, the danger of totalitarianism in Russia and trying to control stuff. So I'd say that's, it's a great recommendation to be like, hey, listen, let's not put yourself in a situation where you're shutting down dissent and everything else like that. Yeah, I am biased. This is the former OpenAI host of OpenAI podcast to producer OpenAI podcast. You could go into Slack and tell Sam, I disagree with you. You could go to an OpenAI. OpenAI is a remarkably flat organization. And people look at Sam as a guy who is a very good leader, very strong leader, really gets it ahead of the curve on a lot of stuff. But human. Sometimes be like, Sam, I think you're right about this, but I think you're wrong on this. And you weren't afraid to say that. And people are like, oh my God, I can't believe, maybe it's changed now, but people are like, I can't believe you said that to Sam. And Sam like, let's hear it out, whatever. That's one of Sam's strengths. Sam's ability, Paul Graham made the point before, you could parachute, Sam into an island full of cannibals and end up king. And what he means is you can put Sam into the most hostile room in the world. Sam will figure out a way to get people talking to whatever directionally like this. That is a very rare skill. And I don't know of any tech CEO right now that I can think of that has that capability. And I think you have to be around them and understand it to see that. Other styles of leadership are, hey, we have the smartest guy in the world telling us what to do, and he's going to figure this out. Well, the problem is when you have that kind of personality group, you don't pay attention to a lot of things. And I would say that, I think that Dario's essay and, was just, he says things, you're like, I pulled this out before, like, he makes a point to be like, this is a great point. You can't talk about curing cancer, you got to cure cancer. I'm like, no, you actually have to talk about curing cancer because when you're trying to explain why you're building a data center, you can't just say because, and that was my problem was you just need to go do these things. That's great in a world where we aren't having to debate and discuss things every day with people to explain what we're doing. And if curing cancer is 3 years off, you're just saying, don't mention it, don't talk about it. And I think that it's one of a long list of things. And if you try to say all the other things, the reasons we do it, and people go, I don't get it, you have to try a lot of things, a lot of reasons. You have to be honest. And like, I got in it because I wanted to help cure cancer. That's why I wanted to do it. I'm not supposed to say that.
There's a thing that kind of comes up a lot in the world of AI development. And I think that it's a very human trait that the idea of scaling up LLMs was so correct. It fundamentally reshaped technology, the internet, and now the economy based on how big we have bet. America's business community has bet on this technology. And so if you're on the inside of that and you're really, really good at it, which all the researchers at Anthropic and OpenAI are, if they weren't, then they wouldn't be the envy of the economy currently. Then you have a tendency to, I think, hand wave things that you might not be particularly skilled at. And this is something that's come up a lot of like whenever there's a gap in the idea of how LLMs will shape the economy, there tends to be this kind of hand wavy element of like, yeah, but the models will fix it. The models will fix it. Even then in the development of the models, we've had conversations about like tool calling, that like tool calling was something that could have been done probably earlier than it was implemented. And the answer was, the models will know. The models will know how to do it. As the models get smarter, they won't need to use a calculator. Won't need to check what the other scores. They'll know how to search the internet better than a human. They'll be able to figure everything out. Guess what? The worth of these models are now defined on A, how smart they are, but B, how they use tools and the tools, what those tools can do. It's a whole nother element of development that's come to this that has made it far more robust. And so when you look at like the economy or drug development or any of these things, these are highly specialized fields that will benefit from this technology. But there just seems to be this idea of like, well, we just need to cure cancer. And that's why when we do our next 4 pre-trains, the cure for cancer will just kind of fall out of it like a vending machine. And maybe that's the case. I don't know for sure. My suspicion based on the progression as of now is that we'll get there closer and faster when people who have a tremendous knowledge in this field get access to some of the tools that give them the efficiencies that coders have understood. And that's going to get us faster to the cure than just it, hatching out of a golden egg from a data center somewhere.
Yeah, it's the hard part is just that people will use AI to draft a blog post about why they hate AI and data centers. That's the world we're in right now. They'll use a data center to generate an image to make a point about why the data centers are bad. And I'm like, okay, it's hard to engage with that other than to point out, I'm like, I think, hey, we all like this. We're all using this stuff. Like that's happening. The question is, let's tell me what your valid concerns are. How do we become good stewards? How do we make sure that we do this? My favorite thing, I saw this post a couple of days ago, was like, if AI data centers are so good, why aren't they
that was
building
David
the
Hogg.
richest places?
David Hogg, former DNC co-chair. And then you can go ahead and give us the community note on that.
Loudoun County, Virginia has the highest number of data centers per capita and also the highest per capita income in the United States. It is both the richest county, richest, most number of data centers, and is one of top performing schools, everything. Like just it's an ideal if you have a metric to do it. And guess what? They have a ton of data centers. And I know the guy that started building those originally back in the 90s. And it's like, actually, guess what? You are better off having data centers than, hog farms. Nothing against hog farming. It's a wonderful institution, whatever. And people just jumped right into like, it does this, it does this. Like, okay, compare it to any other kind of industrial capacity. You found out that people are like, I'd rather have a chip fab facility. Yeah. Okay, that uses way more water, way more runoff, way more whatever.
Yeah.
So it's an emotional argument. And there are people who are just know to play the right strings to sort of make people get upset about it. And you will tell people it's like, those other people who get emotionally manipulated. And like, no, we all can.
There was a great Substack post about talking to people in the data center fight. Politicians that are courting data centers to bring there, some of the people that are fighting against it, some of the unions that are benefiting from it. I thought it was a very well done story. It was on Substack in a bygone era. I could think of 3 or 4 different newspapers that have a far larger budget than this woman had that should have been writing this article about 1.5 years ago. But my journalism complaints aside, one of the things that you realize is like, this is largely just paying the debt of big tech. This is just big tech wants a thing and they have no idea really what the arguments are. Besides, I feel like I'm not getting a say in what is happening. And I do think that part of the approaches for how these data centers are being built do need to be understood. There's a role for the public and politicians, I would say specifically, to play in making sure that there is an honest deal that is being brokered with people around it. And look, it's a large construction project. So you're going to have to deal with a large construction project in areas that don't see a lot of traffic. So it is going to be noisy for a little bit. That being said, I'm kind of losing patience on the rest of the argument because these data centers have been the most uncontroversial things that have been built in America over the last 20 years. Nobody has ever given a rat's ass. There's many instances where, like you pointed out with Loudoun County, there's another one that was highlighted recently in Washington State, where everything that's been beneficial about it has actually materialized. There is property tax relief. There is the ability to build more streets and more hospitals and fund your police department and do all the things that municipal governments desperately want. These are real tangible benefits. They have been tangible benefits for 20 years. We would assume we're going to see a massive uptick in those tangible benefits throughout America as this industrialization continues. But it's hard to fight against, as you pointed out, the resistance movement that uses your tools so they can fight your tools.
Yeah, it's, we've got to the place where people building data centers are willing to make all kinds of, agreements, concessions. And it's like, okay, let me take over this land. It's really not being used for anything right now. I will make a pledge, financially obligated to commit to improve your grid.
Mm-hmm.
I will put more money into your tax base than I take out of it. Sounds like a pretty cool thing, Now, if you said, Andrew, cool, do you want a data center, where I live? It's like, well, I don't want a Costco either, because like I live in this, more rural air kind of area. But if you're asking me if I get to choose between what thing I'm going to have, well, I'll take the data center or the Costco, right here. Don't tell my wife I said that. She'd really like the Costco. But my point is to say is like, if I'm asking you what kind of industrial thing I'd like to have, it's going to be much less traffic, much less this, and it's like, well, it doesn't create as many jobs. Like, yeah, but it puts more money into the economy. It does create more jobs, does bring more technical people in there. You're going to have at least 50 to 60 people in your area with higher technical degrees and whatnot, which does actually have a measurable effect on schools and other things.
I mean, the thing about this argument is that there's data for it. We've seen it happen. Like, it's not like this is new. Yeah. We didn't invent the concept of data centers. Indeed, dear listener and viewer, if you're watching us on YouTube or you are listening to us on a podcast, you are using a data center right now. We are being brought to you by the benefit of a data center. Anyway, I'm sure this is a conversation that we will continue to have as we march down this road. One last thing I wanted to talk about, and that was a clip from Sam Altman, CEO of OpenAI, that went viral, mentioning that we were very close to a descendant of ChatGPT being able to record everything that you are doing and therefore be a better assistant. And this went viral in this current iteration. I think it was from a couple of weeks ago when he spoke at one of the, I think it was the Y Combinator event that he did. It was a longer form interview, but this clip went viral largely in the like, oh, this is the weird tech people that want to surveil us and blah, blah, blah. And I just wanted to highlight something. There is a gulf between people talking about technical solutions, which is, I believe, what Sam was doing there in that highlighting, hey, we are going to be able to run efficiently the ability to have this personal assistant have more of an understanding of your life. That you unsaid in that clip is like, you could turn it on and off. You can tell what would be on and what would be off in the way that all those systems that are currently running are also. And then the like, oh, this is a secret goal or whatever people want to kind of paint it as. And I do think that that's something that does need to be understood as these worlds kind of meld, is that there's a bleeding edge conversation here that is about technical capacity. And then there's a consumer tech side that is getting ever closer to the bleeding edge that doesn't really understand that, like, the remarkable thing about that statement is not that something could record you all the time, but rather that I could do it at real time with good memory in an efficient and affordable way so that it could be available to everybody, which is its own technical achievement. It is an engineering achievement. But I was just curious on your thoughts about that there is this kind of, it's interesting because like it's not, they're not that far away from each other these days, but it was an intersection of that.
We understand the tech and we get it. And I think that also we understand the players and have a different sort of opinion about it than maybe some people do. And I do think that most people watching that clip who got upset forgot that if they shout the name of a certain voice assistant to their phone, it will respond because it's listening, or to a speaker, it will respond. That are sitting there, two active AIs listening right now to their speech, like that, how normal that is now to literally have that in there. And I know some people are like, oh, I don't let it in my home. I'm like, yeah, but you go into a house to ask. Do you tell them to mute it? Like, most people don't. We just accept it because we know that, some of those cases, the court cases, they can subpoena those things. And, if you're, literally, if you're theoretically in limited situations, it causes an issue, but you turn it off. I think that the difference is that, you and I both bought the Meta glasses. Like I bought the display glasses. You have the other ones. Those are, when you take them outside of your office and you go into an office or a building or something like that, or you put them on, then it's a little bit different, kind of feels a little bit more invasive that somebody's doing that. But I don't think we think about the fact that all of our phones are there listening for stuff. I think that little by little we become a little more at ease with it. But I think that because Sam is still a mystery to a lot of people, and because that you take that one thing out of context, then all of a sudden it's like I saw a thing going around today about a Fox News host talking about there's some sailors who are frustrated with the food that they're getting on board ship, and he's criticizing that. And I've heard people like, oh, I can't believe you'd say that. And I'm like, that guy lost 2 legs to an IED. When you have that context, you go, oh, different. And I think that's the thing. It's easy to take this piece and say, oh my God, that sounds really, because I don't know what he talked about before and I don't know what after, but every time I hear this context, it's always spooky where he's, literally talking about a thing you turn off or on him for work. And so I had the Limitless pin, the app that pinned it for a while. Like I had it for like 30 minutes. And I walked downstairs and I had a conversation with my wife, and her friend was there, and I got in my car and it felt awkward because the friend didn't know that I had it on. I recorded the conversation and I felt like, that's not, I was done. I shut it off, never used it again, because I was in a thing like, I don't know that if she had known that I was recording right there, granted, I didn't know who it was, there was no identity to it. I have a higher confidence in Apple and OpenAI to figure out ways to anonymize it. Like OpenAI literally released a system for anonymizing data because they're thinking ahead of this, to the idea that, let's say I go out into the public and I have my device on me. What would be ideal would be that anybody that hasn't given me permission, it just literally doesn't record their voice. And you can do that, and I think we'll get to that point, and that's going to be the default, is I can use this thing and record, but also the model's going to know, don't say who else wrote, don't say, unless the person says you can identify me, don't identify that person and anonymize it. But there's certain companies I trust to do this and certain companies I don't trust. And it comes down to the primary way in which they make revenue. Facebook primarily makes its revenue through advertising. And as much as I like Mark as a person, I think he's a really neat guy, but as a guy running a business and ad company, he's going to be as ruthless as he has to be. Same with Google. Apple and OpenAI, different strategies.
One last note on the way out. We've talked a lot critically about Google and their big shakeup and where they are in terms of being a frontier lab. I've also been very, very critical of Google in terms of them not being further along in terms of consumer AI products. And I still believe that, because I don't believe that they have, at least for me, integrated Gemini in a way that I really like or find really very, very valuable in the Google products that I use every day. With that being said, I have now had multiple friends of mine that are not totally plugged into this world that will have a conversation and tell me that this is a 2-horse race in the world of AI, and it's OpenAI and Google, because those are the two things that they interact with on an everyday basis. They use ChatGPT and they use Gemini. There are consumer Gemini fans who very much believe that this is a good tool, and I just wanted to flag that because I do tend to slide in a lot of criticism of Google and Gemini, but it's happened enough that I wanted to flag it.
Yeah, the problem is that much like the problem with the way that Google advertises products, if you look at a list of things, it sounds great. The ingredients sound great. World-class engineers, researchers, Nobel Prize winning, incredible talent, amazing resources, tons of money. but it's the chef. It's how it's all put together, how it all works. And I think they're going to continue to do great stuff. They've built some really great innovative models. Like they've done like some incredible like weather prediction stuff. The newest things. Like I'm always when people are like, oh, they're not a frontier iLab. Like I don't know if they're frontier. If there's three people in the frontier doing LLMs, and yeah, Google's there. If you're saying it's a two lab race, then yeah, I don't think Google's there. And I actually think only one lab's going to be apparent in a few months from now.
Yeah.
We'll see. We'll go back and visit that. And who it is, not telling you right now, but there are so many different other places. And, an example I would give is that, when OpenAI and Anthropic, you go back a year ago and Anthropic was the clear leader for models that were doing code, where OpenAI had a way better voice assistant, way better like low cost model so they could serve hundreds of millions of people. You could see that they were competing in different areas. And Google in theory, like you would think they would be ahead right now. And I had a discussion, like I was back in May and like earlier before, like a year ago, I was telling like, it's not going to look good for Google. And I'm like, what do you mean? They got all this thing. And then, they did the Gemini 3 launch, a lot of PR.
Yeah.
But a month later, it just wasn't there. And I talked to other people who were like, like VCs are like, looks like Google's doing really good. I'm like,
yeah,
who are you talking to? You can talk about like, you can look at like the amount of Gemini usage. And I can tell you, I may end up using Gemini 6 times a day, always by accident, because I go do search. And when I try to search for things, I get, it will automatically default you to Gemini. If you go look on the top free apps in the App Store, what number do you think Gemini is right now? Number 1, by the way, is 7 Brew Coffee.
I will say Gemini is 21.
Close.
Okay.
It is 17. Claude is 18. Google Maps is 21. But yeah, it's not even in the top 10.
Where's Chat?
And a lot of the things, like the things switch and change.
Gotcha.
Chat's number 2 right now. Chat is the longest running, like probably one of the longest running number 1 spots. It'll switch off
the new hot shot
whatever,
thing,
like,
because that's how the algorithm works.
Yeah, it's almost always the new food thing or some coupon thing or whatever. But anyhow, and they'll show you their numbers. Like, and again, they have massive adoption. Like I talk to students and I go, use Chat. And then I got to use Gemini. My school bought the Gemini subscription. I got to do this. So they railroaded people through it and they put it through all these other places. But when you compare, when people really have a choice, not doing great. They do have some great models. I talked about the Gemini Flash, really good models. They were doing some really good stuff in the we call the Pareto frontier. But anyhow, point is, and we talked about this last week, and I think that we are going to see, this week is going to be very telling, by the way. This week, because we're rumored to get the release of Astra finally. We've heard about Astra. OpenAI has talked about Astra, the new model class capabilities. No numbers or specs on what Astra is supposed to do. But Astra, let's see what Astra's at, because the thing we know is Astra's already an old model for OpenAI and they're training the next model. And if Astra is a big leapfrog on what things are, the hype around it's pretty intense, like better than Fable on everything, all that, which is a model that Anthropic can't serve. It's,
if you wanted a hint that Astra's coming this week, Anthropic said that Mythos 2 is internal. So, there will be signs.
Yes.
There will be signs.
You know what else is
Mythos.
still, what else is internal at Anthropic?
Yeah.
Mythos 1, yeah. So, and almost like they're and it's worth recapping too. The strategy is that OpenAI, they focused on different forms of like the training, like how much you work on pre-training, how much you work on post-training. OpenAI is more like just get a bunch of data, train it, and figure out later on how to get it to do what you want. Anthropic was very methodical about data, was very, very intense on a lot of the pre-training data and how they sort of approach this thing. Now you're getting these labs are understanding what works well for other companies and what they're doing there. And we'll see. We'll see what happens there. And quality, I get why OpenAI decided to get rid of Sora, which I love that. And I'll tell you too, by the way, like, man, Seedance 2.5, these other models are incredible. Google Omni, like some of them, I've been seeing some video stuff now that's like insanely good, but you understand the compute that it takes. So now back to, I guess to sort of sum up the Google thing is, normies are seeing it. And the problem Google has is just that you can have the greatest engineers in the world working on Gemini, but if Sundar is like, hey, you need to hit these, we got to have these, it's got to be, I have to show on stage that it hit all these metrics at the top thing, then you're going to spend a lot more of your compute trying to benchmax it than to try to make a really great experience of a model, which I think is shown. And also, are you going to compete on efficiency like OpenAI was doing, or are you going to compete and try to make the top of the line model? And the answer to these is like,
I will say,
both. It's like,
the people that have told me that they love Gemini are very consumer users. They are like asking very, very chatbot consumer questions.
They like AI. I think that the ones that if they have a preference, I'd be surprised. I think a lot of them are just ones who just like AI.
Yeah. One of them was like they use chat for some things. They use, it was interesting. They used Gemini for questions that they found almost embarrassing, and then they would bring higher level stuff to chat. But like, I think that the sociology around all that is absolutely fascinating to me. The question then becomes, and I had this, I was in Orlando when we last talked, and my mom uses ChatGPT all the time. I was like, okay, well, let me set you up. Let me make sure that you have the desktop app on. I want you to be able to, run these automations. I wanted to pull your email, yada, yada. Just make all this stuff easy for her. I forgot just how much of a bubble I live in because I'm on the $200 plan. And like the things that it's like I can fly, and then I try to fly with like her thing. It's like, oh no, like this is a different world. And now all this capability will eventually come to everybody. But like codecs, remote, somebody pointed out today, I didn't even know this, but all the other remote, like the Claude remote stuff, it's basically just like a viewer and approver bot for a thing that starts on your desktop, but you can't go the other way. You can't go from mobile to your desktop, which is like the biggest way that I use the codecs remote things. Like, it's crazy. And I'll tell you what else, and I don't know whether everybody else has this because I don't know what's available to everybody, but some of the recommendations that ChatGPT is giving me when I open up my thing, they're getting pretty good. Like one out of the three is something that I want to hit. And if it continues to get better, it will be a real feature. Like that's where you get to the other step. The one thing I will critique though, having set up my mom's ChatGPT desktop, boy, is it dialed in on the knowledge work of a San Francisco tech worker. It's like, okay, connect your Gmail. Cool. She has a Gmail. Now connect your Slack and your Notion. And it's like, she has neither of those. She has no interest in that. Like, let's, it's a little bit more general, but still, crazy times.
Yeah. I think that was such a response because Claude work did such huge numbers for Anthropic, and that OpenAI is like maybe overreacted, I don't know, but their revenue numbers has shot up considerably because I think that OpenAI has the better, more efficient model right now, but Anthropic's got, I do think it comes down between OpenAI and Anthropic. I think that Google has a lot of opportunity. Like nobody mentions Microsoft now. Microsoft created their own efforts to try to get into AI.
Yeah.
Nobody talks about them right now. SpaceX AI is building models that a lot of people
they launched
again,
their
when you start trying to fit
worker thing, Crockbot.
Yeah, the problem is like I think that they've got the compute and some clever people to train a good model.
Well, it looks like that Crockbot was what Cursor had cooking. That Cursor had an agentic platform, and now it's Grokbot.
Well, it's now yeah, that is the team. I mean, that's effectively the team XAI is now. SpaceX is Cursor. They're a great team, great stuff. I think the problem just comes into is like, how rough these things are often around the edges, and that can be all the difference in the world.
One last thing. We talk a lot of positive about OpenAI on this show, but I'm not going to talk positive now because Atlas is officially dead. My wife was
dead to me, this company.
Disgusted. She did not take the warning seriously that it was going to be depreciated. And
I didn't know I would have put her in my eulogy photo. And I didn't know that she was. I installed the ChatGPT plugin like they said. I'm a power user of Codex / ChatGPT app / ChatGPT work, whatever they want me to call it. It's not the same, and I think it deserves its own browser. I like that it's native to Chrome, and it probably works better with Chrome in terms of computer use. The computer use that happens on Chrome is phenomenal. Like, it is fast. It is good. I can't get it to direct to the exact window that I want often. It's not built for it. And, look, it's their company. They got to figure out how they're deploying their people. They obviously have had a decision that was made that anything that we don't do the best, we're not going to compete in. And so that's where they came with Atlas. But boy, I think that they need a browser that is built to be agentically controlled first and foremost. And Chrome is not that right now. And it is a less than experience. Well, the funny thing is, all the parts are there. You just got to build a stripped down version of Codex or ChatGPT, whatever we're calling the app, the ChatGPT, because it has a highly capable browser inside of there now that lets login, does all these things in there. It's just wrapped. It's 3 layers deep, and that's been my crit. Like, I don't want to have to click 3 buttons to go back to my browser. I like to sometimes have multiple browsers open, whatever. This is our thing we said very beginning about the super app. I like to context switch. I don't want to just quick one tab and reload everything, by the way, when I do this. I think I get it though. I get it. They needed all product hands on people on deck to be able to do it, and maintaining that was a problem. And I get that. It's frustrating because as the models got better, Atlas got even better. And because also too, like, here's Andrew complains. Okay, I opened up my ChatGPT app and I want to do a new chat. I just want to use it like ChatGPT, and I go in there and I click new chat, and if I have it set in work, it says, what folder do you want? Like, I literally got to click multiple things to code switch between this, which is I'm
getting to the point where I have too many
like
folders on too many machines for Codex. And like, it's getting hard for me to remember where I have the thing that I was thinking about.
What helps me know is I bought the deck so that when I have a stream pop up, when I have like a finished thing, I get the green dot, so that's helpful because I have, hundreds of threads there that I need to see which one just finished. Well, I press the green button and it opens it up.
All right. Well,
sold out.
Well, I hope so.
I'm sure.
Or there'll be another, I don't know. There'll be a new category of,
I mean, there's cheaper versions in this one.
Andrew, where can people find you?
But will it have? I am Andrew Mayne on X, Mayne, and I have, by the way, I have a new book coming out.
The Session. Give us the log line.
New standalone novel. Well, it's about a corporate entity that has exists around the world and does a lot of different things. The tagline is, it's not cult, it's a business. And so basically a young man gets pulled into this, given a scholarship grant by this, nonprofit attached to there, and finds out that he gets pulled into this big power vacuum of, my pitch is sort of like, what if Scientology went more corporate? What if that had happened? What would that look like? So I need to work on my log line, go workshop on it.
Is it available now?
Ready. Available pre-order. I describe it as like basically like Succession meets
It's awesome. That's a log line. What if Succession was inside Scientology?
Yeah.
There we go. All right, Justin R. Young, wherever you find Justin R. Young's on social media. Until next time, friends, we'll see you later.
Diamond Club hopes you have enjoyed this program.
Dog and Pony Show audio.